Okay, here we are. We are going to tackle our story sequence unit for IEW. I will be using information from Student Intensive A, and the pages that we're working with are, um, there we go, the teacher's notes with Lesson 7, and those are found on page 47. The back side is really the key piece, and that is page 48, and it's the story sequence chart. We'll be going over that together. Page 49 is the story sequence model, and that has a bit more information in a slightly, well, it's just got it in a different way than what you see on page 48. And finally, the source material that we're working with today is The Boy Who Cried Wolf. So that's a story that we're all pretty common with, so that one's easy to work with as well. All right, I'm going to start by actually reading the story to you, just because not everybody may have it at hand. Okay, so a long time ago, there was a boy who watched his father's sheep. And each day he took them to a pasture on the hillside above the village, and there he sat and watched them all day long. In the afternoon, as the sun began to go down, he drove the sheep home again. Often he became quite lonely because he had no one to play with. How he longed for just a little bit of company. One day, when he became very lonely indeed, he remembered what his father told him when he first began to care for the sheep. "You must always beware of the wolf," his father had said, "and if you should see one, be sure to call for help." Now, the boy had never seen a wolf, but he thought that it would be so pleasant to have some company that he decided to make believe. "Wolf, wolf!" he cried at the top of his lungs. "Wolf, wolf!" Far below, the villagers heard him. They all dropped their work, seized their axes, and rushed to the pasture. But when they got there, they saw only the sheep and the boy. There was no wolf at all, and he was glad to see them that they were not, he was so glad to see them that they were not very angry with him for having fooled them. But they told him that he must not do it again. For a long time he did not. One day, though, he was feeling lonelier than ever. He knew he shouldn't, but he cried out as loudly as he could, "Wolf! Wolf!" Again, the villagers came rushing to help him. But when they got there, they saw only the sheep and the boy. They were very upset at having been disturbed at their work again, and told the boy that he absolutely must not do it again. And he did not. One day, as he sat quietly watching his sheep, he saw a big gray wolf come slinking out of the forest. "Wolf! Wolf!" he cried with all his might. "Wolf! Wolf!" The villagers far below heard his cries, but went on with their work. They did not want to be fooled again. "Wolf! Wolf!" cried the boy. "Wolf! Wolf!" As At this, the villagers were startled. Perhaps he did need help. They dropped their work, seized their axes, and rushed to the pasture. But they were too late. When they got there, the wolf had gone, and all they ever found of the little boy was his pointed shepherd's cap. Well, there you go. Okay, so we are going to begin with questions, and those questions are found on this story sequence chart. Okay, so I'm going to have you do just what I did with your students, and that is start with a piece of paper. All right, and we are going to make 2 columns, and we'll write story sequence chart up there. And we're going to put a Roman numeral 1 with a 1, a 2, and a 3. We'll leave a little space, and then we'll do 1, 2, excuse me, a 2, 1, 2, 3. We'll leave a little space again. And our Roman numeral 3. And 1, 2, 3. Okay? So that's what it's looking like so far. Now, then we're going to draw a line. Okay? So what we've got are 3 sections, basically 6 areas, but 3 sections, and this is the first paragraph, the second paragraph, and the third paragraph. Okay? So this first paragraph is going to be, we're going to talk in the first paragraph about our characters and our setting. Okay? So, what characters do we have in our story about the boy who cried wolf? And what is our setting? So who's our first character? The boy, right? What do we know about the boy? What was he doing? He was being a shepherd, right? So we've got boy and shepherd. Do we know how he acted or what his condition was, that kind of thing? Well, the story tells us he was foolish, right? He was also a little bit lonely. Okay, so either of those would work. We're going to stick with foolish because that's what Mr. Pudawa has on his chart, and that's easy. Okay, so foolish. Okay, now that gives us our who right there, and tells us what he's like and maybe his condition or his character. Okay. Next, we'll talk about where and maybe when. Okay. And both of these we're going to use to create an image. Okay. So, where are we? Well, the boy's on a hillside watching the sheep, right? For his father in the pasture and that kind of thing. So, hillside. We know there's a village, right? Is it rainy? Is it sunny? Is it icy or summertime? What is it? That's for you to decide. But we've got enough to go with for now right here. Let's see. What is the boy doing? He's watching, right? The sheep. So, watching. How does he like that? He's kind of tired. He's kind of bored, right? He's like, seriously, I want something to do. I don't have a Game Boy. Oh my gosh, totally dating myself. I don't have anything to play with. So yeah, so he's kind of tired, and the B word, bored. Okay. And what do we hear at the end of that paragraph? And it may or may not be easy for you to note that just because you may not have it in front of you. But before we start talking about what the boy does, we hear that little warning from his father, right? Saying, don't, or the father says to be careful. Father says be careful. And it's a warning, right? Okay. So with that information, we can really do a great job writing a first paragraph. Okay. We may choose to add a little bit more, but we'll do that in just a little bit. Okay. So now we're down to our second paragraph, And in that one, we're going to talk about our conflict or our problem. Okay? Because if there's no conflict or problem, what's the point of the story? It's just not very interesting, right? So, if the boy had just been tending the sheep and he never had any problems or that kind of thing, would it be a very interesting story? No. Things get on the news because they're interesting for a reason. Okay? So, what was happening? What did our characters think? What did they say? What did they do? Okay. So what's our boy thinking or feeling? He's lonely, right? So he remembers what his father told him. What does he do? He calls for help, and what do the villagers do? They come. Okay. So he cried, wolf, and they rush. But once they get there, what do they say? Don't do it again. Okay. So he called them once. They came. He called them again. They rushed up there again, and they said, "Don't do it." So he's sitting out there, and he's doing okay. But after a while, you just kind of get you can't take it anymore. He's kind of overwhelmed, and he's lonely, and he's bored, right? So he's kind of overwhelmed. And he thinks, what am I gonna do? But he's just kind of sitting there, and so he does it again. I'm sorry. This wasn't the first time he called out. This was the first time he called out. He's overwhelmed after a long time, and so he does it again, and the villagers are furious. And they say once again, don't ever. Okay? So that is how that's going along. All right? Next, we're going to come into our third paragraph, because this is what's going on. Now, there's going to be a climax and then a solution, right? So, we're going to go ahead and write climax, solution, and how was our problem solved? Okay. Well, what happened? He's going along, he's sitting there, and all of a sudden, what comes slinking out of the mist? A wolf. And he's real this time, right? So, real wolf. Okay. And he has real teeth that will eat him, that will eat the boy. And he probably has real eyes, right, to look all the better to see him with, as we go ahead and cross our little tails. But he's real, he's got teeth, he's got eyes. His eyes can look kind of sinister or hungry, right? So we'll put down those two. How's the boy feeling? Is he perhaps terrified? Yeah, I would think so. And he shouts again, right? Woof, woof. And does anyone come? Not so much. So, what do the villagers do? they ignore him. They ignore his cries of wolf. All right. But then as he trails off, what do? They're like, oh, wait, maybe that was the real thing. So they rush and they find, or what was found, nothing. They don't find anything. We're going to add a number 4 here. Is there a moral or a message or an epilogue? A little bit, right? We kind of all know the moral of this one is don't cry wolf, right? But I think this is the original, so we can't exactly say that. So instead, maybe don't lie. I know the chart says not lie. It seems silly to me. Don't lie. No one, oh, nobody, because we need just a couple words. Nobody believes or will believe. It's hard to write on that little tiny section. Okay, so nobody will believe. So what we've got here is a spot where we can give our message, right? Don't lie. In the video, the students heard that you could maybe go on and give a lesson, or the epilogue kind of wraps things up and tells you where everybody ends up and that kind of thing. So it could be that, you know, maybe in your student's version, they didn't find, you know, just a hat. Maybe they found his staff and it was pointing in a direction or something like that. So they followed it and they ended up finding the boy and he was playing with the wolf cubs. I don't know. It could be different. Or maybe the boy was up a tree and they found him that way, you know, that kind of thing. But the message is going to be similar. Don't lie or nobody's going to believe you, right? So that's kind of what we've got for our keyword outline, really. Now, we can add to this a bit simply by, oh, I don't have any more paper, simply by dressing up and giving it some additional ideas. So what we could do, and this chart has a great third column, okay? So actually, that's what I'm going to work with now since I've run out of room on my third column. I'm going to go ahead and just fold mine in half and hold it up with there. We're going to do our best to make it work, okay? Sometimes it's not all planned out just perfectly. So here's what we've got. So for dress-up ideas on the first paragraph, tell us more about the boy. We already said that he was foolish. Maybe he's young. Maybe he's disobedient. Maybe he's actually a really, really good son and a studious boy. We don't know, but your student can decide that. Okay. Maybe the father was very wise, or maybe he was terrified. I don't know. Tell us about the village. Was it small? Was it large? Was it I don't know, made of spaghetti noodles and popsicle sticks? Okay, you can have a lot of fun with just some of those setting type things, and your student gets to decide. Okay, was it a busy town? Was the hillside on another planet? Was it grassy? Was it soft? Was it rocky? Was it snowy? Did it rain up instead of down? I don't know. Okay, but those are all ideas that your student can use to dress up the story and change it around a little bit and make it their own. All right. Once you've got this keyword outline portion, and that's really what your students did already in class with me today, then they can start writing their outline, or their rough draft, pardon me. So, what sentence would they make from boy, shepherd, foolish? There once was a foolish boy who was in charge of being a shepherd over his father's sheep. He went to the hillside every day that overlooked the village, and he was really sad because everything down there looked like so much fun, and he had to sit way up on the hillside and mind his business and the sheep. And as he was watching the sheep, he became really tired and kind of bored. But he remembered his father had given him a warning to be careful and watch out for the wolf. Okay, so that's paragraph number 1. Done. Paragraph number 2. Well, the boy continued to watch the sheep, and he became really lonely until one day he just couldn't take it anymore, and he called out, "Wolf, wolf!" And the villagers came. Oh, but the villagers said, "You can't do that again. That's naughty. Don't make us rush up here if there's not really a wolf." Okay? So the boy went back to sitting very quietly, but time passed and he just kind of became overwhelmed, being really, tired all by himself. And what was he going to do? He couldn't help it. He cried out again, "Wolf, wolf!" And the villagers were furious. They came and they rushed, but they said, do not ever, ever, ever do this again. Okay, so that's the end of paragraph number 2. Paragraph number 3. And then one day, a real wolf snuck out of the trees with big teeth and steely eyes. And the boy heard his stomach growl. I don't know. There's details you can add. Okay, so that is how they're going to fill in their rough draft from the keyword outline. Okay, so what I'm going to tell you is on your homework assignment, I did include a link to the IEW help page for this unit specifically because I found they had a lot of really good information, and it was helpful for me to reread it because, yep, I get uncomfortable with this unit because it is not very structured and cut and dried just like the last one. And I really like the last one because it makes a lot of sense, okay? You can say A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, done, okay? With this one, you're asking questions, and you may not ask the same questions every time, and you may not ask them in the same order. That formula is getting a little more flexible, and it's a little less comfortable. Okay, so some of your students who did really, really well in the taking notes unit are going to get really uncomfortable and possibly really frustrated with this unit, and that's okay. It's a process, all right? And some of your students who felt really frustrated with the taking notes unit that we just finished are going to love this one because they can finally be a little more creative and that kind of thing. And it's still a process, okay? So we will have fun with it. Hang in there, and we're all in this together. Let me know what questions you have. Thank you.